Welcome to the Prime, everybody. Today starts a series of NFC conference previews, division previews. I'm sorry about that. Today I'm going to go over the NFC West and what I expect from those teams, their projected lineups, and which rookie I think is most likely to make an impact on their respective teams between the Cardinals, Seahawks, the Los Angeles Rams, and the San Francisco 49ers. It was a rough year for them. But hopefully with Chip Kelly at the fold, maybe they can muster up some offense and bring out some of that young talent that they have been talking about. But today does mark the first day of a 8-day straight series that I am going to go over. Maybe 6 days. I always go back on things. But I just want everybody to enjoy the show. Sit back, relax, and let everything take you away. But in the hindsight, the NFC West looks to figure to be top heavy, with the Cardinals and the Seahawks, who respectively had 2 good seasons. Both teams had good seasons last year. With the Seattle Seahawks always looking to get lucky. They were a field goal away from losing to the Minnesota Vikings. But I'm very optimistic about this division. I think the Los Angeles Rams, I'm very, very, very stoked to see the Los Angeles Rams come back to LA with their number 1 overall pick in Jared Goff. And I just hope that team actually, does something for that city, because they've been waiting for it. So I'm going to go over the division. I'm going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, who last year had a very good season. They beat the Packers. I believe they lost to the Panthers in the NFC title game. But I'm very optimistic about this season for the NFC West and for the Arizona Cardinals. Last year, they were a very good team, very polished. Bruce Arians finally got that team going, running and flowing. And so I'm very optimistic about the Arizona Cardinals. On that team, obviously, they have some new additions. I'm going to start with the draft, and I'm not going to go over, draft pick by draft pick, because it was they got a lot of draft picks. But, some of the notable ones, Robert Nkemdiche was their first-round pick. And, people said, hey, Robert Nkemdiche going to the Arizona Cardinals is good because you got a lot of good leadership there. Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson. You have some really good veteran leaders on that team that are going to keep him in line. So, and Bruce Arians does not take any, BS from any of his players. So, with that being said, Robert Nkemdiche, I think I don't know if he's going to make a very big impact, but I think he'll make an impact, coming off that line in reserve of some of those linemen, probably coming off the bench, probably being, when they rotate off, probably a third down rusher, second down rusher, situational rusher, because he does have that athletic ability. And I could see them throwing him in on some tight end plays on offense. I mean, that guy has some wheels, and he's very athletic, and he can play the tight end position as well. I mean, not at a high level, obviously, but I mean, you could throw him in there on some trick plays, and you'll see what what happens. I really like their 4th round pick, Evan Boehm. I think he's gonna be a good solid pick for them. But I like, honestly, man, I think Robert Nkemdiche is going to be probably better than the best rookie on obviously out of all those Arizona Cardinals players. I see him at least getting at least 20 to 30 reps, snaps per game. Like I said, situational rusher, and I just think that he's gonna be a very good pass rusher in this league once he all puts it together. Very good pass rusher in this league once he puts it together. Because there's nothing, in the NFL, it's all about speed. It's all about strength. And it's all about ability. And Robert Nkemdiche has that. He has ability. And I say it like that because I have a friend that says stuff like that. It's kind of funny. So I'm like stealing his slogan there, or his trademark saying. But Robert Nkemdiche is going to be a force to reckon with in this league if he, stays focused on the right track and, he puts it all together. He's going to be a top 10, pass rusher in this league for a long time coming. Plus, he's very young. With that being said, the Arizona Cardinals, they just came off of one of their best statistical years in a long time. They were number one offensive team in the league in total yards per game. They were the number 5 defensive team in total yards per game. They were the number 8 in pass defense. They were number 6 in rush defense. The Arizona Cardinals were really good. I think they were number 2, I want to say, pass offense in the league, or they might have been number 1. I think the New Orleans Saints might have been number 1, and they might have been number 2. But yeah, the Arizona Cardinals, they haven't lost much. They have not lost much. You still got Carson Palmer at the fold. Running backs, you still got Chris Johnson and David Johnson still there. Andre Ellington. You figure to see David Johnson get a lot more reps than Chris Johnson. But Chris Johnson still had a pretty decent year last year, along with David Johnson, who's was a wide receiver converted to a running back from Northern Iowa. And so, I could see David Johnson, getting more of an expanded role, because I know he broke out a little bit from I want to say the end of the first part of the season to the rest of the season. He was had a better role than what he usually what people actually expected of him. And so, at the wide receiver position, you're still solid. Larry Fitzgerald, you got Michael Floyd, John Brown, J.J. Nelson. All those guys that came back that led the number 2 passing attack in the league. And then you still got Darren Fells, Jermaine Gresham at tight end. Like I said, Evan Boehm, who was their 4th round pick at center. And you can't really evaluate rookies or any offensive linemen, to be just to put that out there, because they're going to be on the line. It's 5 other guys, and it's not a glorified position like wide receiver or running back or tight end for that matter. It's not a skill position, so you don't really get to evaluate a center's ability. But I think Evan Boehm is going to be a good pick, on that line next to Mike Iupati, Evan Mathis, Jared Veld here, Earl Watford. Those figure to be your starters going into the this season. On the defensive side of the ball, you still got Calais Campbell. Like I said, you got Corey Peters, Frosty Rucker, Robert Nkemdiche. So they're going to be talented on that defensive line always. That's what that team was built from. You started seeing them over the years. They started becoming more of a defensive oriented team. At linebackers, I would say that the linebacker they did upgrade. And when they got Chandler Jones, Alex Okafor. The linebackers could be a lot better. than what they were last year. And I think they are going to be a lot better last year. And they were a pretty good, running defense. They were a top 10 running defense. They were number 6 overall. So I think the Arizona Cardinals are still going to be a force to be reckoned with in the box. They're still going to be a force to be reckoned with in the box, and they're basically, on a week to week basis, they're going to impose their will on the front seven. That's what they're going to do, and basically, sky's the limit for their defense. I mean, like I said, they just landed Chandler Jones, I think a week and a half ago. He signed with them. And, sky's the limit for the linebackers and their defensive line, because they got a lot of talent in their front seven. And, and then you look at their defensive back, Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson. You got Deion Buchanan, Justin Bethel. I mean, you got a lot of, DJ Swearinger. They got a lot of talent, defensive backs. Very athletic, very long, very fast guys. A lot of fast guys. And so I can see this team being a top 5 defensive team again. And nothing much has left their offense. I think their offense is going to be even better this year. With David Johnson probably having a more expanded role. They, got better, I think, on the offensive line. So I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a step back. I think they're probably the front runners to win this division. And saying that is it's pretty much not saying much, because this division used to be a lot better with the 49ers. When they're doing good, this division is probably one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. But, since the Niners are pretty much in a rebuilding mode, the Rams are sort of kind of, they've been middle of the pack for quite some time now, like lower to middle of the pack, actually, to say that. And so, you look at the Cardinals, and they're pretty much the rulers of this division, the way I look at it. I think they surpassed the Seattle Seahawks in terms of talent, in terms of supremacy in the NFC West. So, moving on, to my next team, the Seattle Seahawks. And like I said, I'm going to start top heavy with this division, because basically those are the two teams that I'm predicting, and pretty much everybody else is predicting to rule this division, to basically bully everybody in this division, because the Rams aren't going to be much better. The Niners aren't going to be much better. Let's just put that out there right now before I even start with them. The Rams just got, they had the number 1 overall pick last year. That's telling you something. So, I mean, even though I believe they weren't that bad statistically last year. And I see the Rams getting they're gonna, I think they will be better than the 49ers. Definitely the Rams will be better than the 49ers. But the Seahawks, they traded up to get Jarran Reed. They really wanted to beef up their defensive line. I think out of all the draft picks, I think he's going to be the most impactful as a rookie. Jarran Reed from Alabama. I think he's going to, clog up that line. And he's basically going to take over for Brandon Mebane and solidify, that defensive tackle position that he had solidified for so many years before moving on to the San Diego Chargers. So, with that being said, I think the Seattle Seahawks are pretty much destined to repeat and probably even excel a lot further than they did last year. They got a lot younger. Obviously, the big one, Marshawn Lynch, retired. So Thomas Rawls is basically going to take over the reins. He's going to be their new workhorse because he showed them something. Same deal that, in a way, like the Chicago Bears are dealing with. They had Langford, take over for Forte when he got injured, and they still got Kadeem Carey to, back him up. But we're not going to talk about the Bears right now. That's a much different situation than what this one is. But basically, the Seahawks, they were the number 4 best offensively offensive team in terms of yards per game last season. Defensively, they were number 2 in terms of yards per game defensively as a whole, as a unit. In pass defense, total yards per game, they were number 2. And in run defense, they're the best run defense statistically in total yards per game. So the Seattle Seahawks are still going to be a great defensive team. That's their staple. That's been their staple since Pete Carroll has been there, is that they're a great defensive team, and they're going to be probably in those same categories, same rankings this year, because I believe that they're still going to be a good defensive team. And I'm sorry for the background noise. It's my son in the background. But like I said, Seattle Seahawks, surprised a lot of folks. They didn't think a lot of people didn't think Seattle was going to be a very, great offensive team. A lot of people thought that, Russell Wilson was going to run like a chicken with his head cut off. And for the most part, he kind of did. But he when he's out the pocket, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's so accurate on the run. He's so good at making extra time for his wide receivers to get open, to find pockets in that secondary. So, and he's so accurate on the go. He's so accurate, either going to his left or his right, and he's so creative, he's so elusive, he's so fast. Russell Wilson is he is the main conductor, which most quarterbacks are, but he is the main guy, the main culprit. Without Russell Wilson, that offense is basically very average offense without Russell Wilson, and he makes them go. And I went over Thomas Rawls. Basically, I don't even have to say anybody else. Who's gonna be on that? Who's gonna take over running back role? Because it's gonna be Thomas Rawls. That's all it's gonna be, is Thomas Rawls. He is going to be their man. And then you got CJ Prosise, who's probably gonna back him up, and he's gonna be him and Alex Collins from Arkansas. Both of those guys rookies. They're gonna be, they figure to get in some snaps this year to give Thomas Rawls some rest, probably change the pace back, third down back, or whatever the case is in certain situations. Tight ends, they got Jimmy Graham. This, like I said, this is one of the a lot of people thought the Seattle Seahawks weren't gonna be that great offensive, because their wide receivers, they're basically deep ball wide receivers. They don't run great routes, and a lot of people are like, hey, Jimmy Graham is probably going to be one of their main guys, one of their main offensive threats, and he wasn't last year. They did not know how to figure out how to get the tight end the ball, and plus the injury didn't help as well. The season-ending injury didn't help. But at the same time, this year they're gonna have to figure out a way to get Jimmy Graham more involved in the offense, because like I said, this offense, from watching them previously in the past, they don't use the tight end as much as as other teams do. They don't use the tight end as much, so they're going to have to figure out a way to, get Jimmy Graham out, spread him out wide, put him in a slot, get some mismatches on him in the red zone. They're going to, have to get him on an outside linebacker. They're going to have to, utilize the tight end more, because Jimmy Graham is a top tight end in this league. He is one of the top 3 tight ends in this league statistically in the last 3 to 4 years, and Jimmy Graham cannot be overlooked in this offense. Now, when you talk about wide receivers, Doug Baldwin got paid nice. He had a really great season, the Pro Bowl year last year. Doug Baldwin did. Jermaine Kearse, Tyler Lockett. I think he's going to break out this year. Tyler Lockett, the kick return specialist last year, showed us something, and I think he's going to be even more explosive as a wide receiver this season. And that's basically, they don't use many, big sets in terms of wide receivers, 3 or 4 wide receivers. That's pretty much it. You usually see them using 3 wide receivers, and those top 3 guys are pretty much going to get the bulk of all the passes. The offensive line figures to be still pretty solid. The defensive line, like I said, still got Cliff Averill. You still got Michael Bennett. You just drafted Jaron Reed to take over for Brandon Mebane. You got Chris Clemens. You got a lot of guys. On this defensive line that are going to be impacts They're going to make an impact. They're gonna make you feel it this season in terms of impact on the defensive line. And you go to the linebackers. You still got Bobby Wagner. You still got KJ Wright. You still got your guys, Pierre Louis, Pinkins, Morgan, Mars. They're figuring to fight for that third linebacker slot in training camp this year. Your cornerbacks, you still got Richard Sherman, Jeremy Lane. You still got you got three other guys. Deshaun Sheed, Harold Simon, Ty Smith. Both of them are pretty much going to be their nickel corners. Even though you've seen Jeremy Lane, he's been playing pretty much nickel corner of most of his career. But still now he's going to have a little bit of a more expanded role in the defensive backfield alongside Richard Sherman. And like I said, you're going to have Deshaun Sheed, Harold Simon, Ty Smith. They're going to be fighting for that nickel corner slot in terms of moving up in terms of the depth chart. So, your safeties, you still got Cam back there, Cam Chancellor, big wham, bam, Cam, knocking people back, and you still got one of the best safeties in the league, Earl Thomas. This defense is still great. Even though they lose a few other, few components from years past. They're still a great defense. Brandon Browner, I believe they had Tramon Williams last year, and he's gone. So the Seattle Seahawks, all they do is reload. They did lose Bruce Irvin to the Oakland Raiders, off that defensive line, which is gonna hurt. But like I said, that's the reason why they got Jaron Reed. They lost Brandon Mebane. They lost Bruce Irvin, but Cliff Avrill's still gonna be there. Michael Bennett's still there. Jaron Reed, and then you got other guys. Frank Clark, Quentin Jefferson, Jordan Hill, Chris Clemens. Those guys are gonna try and step up, and fill those voids for the Seattle Seahawks on that front line in terms defensively. But like I said, same thing for the Cardinals goes for the Seahawks. This team like I said, they're going to improve. They're probably going to be a 12, 13 win team, just like I think the Cardinals are going to be. They're not losing. They're going to win they're going to win more than 11 games. They're going to win 12 or 13 games, both of these teams. That's my prediction. I think the Cardinals are still going to win this division, but it's going to be close. And I think the Seahawks, they're coming. The Seahawks, it's going to be a very interesting before for those two coming up this season. Very interesting matchups, very key matchups when they play each other this season. But they are the top dogs in this division. Let's put that out there right now. They are the top dogs in this division, and the Seahawks figure to be just as good offensively, even probably just as good defensively, and they could possibly make a Super Bowl run if they make it to the playoffs and they click. I mean, last year they won their last 7 or 8 games. They won like 5 or 6 games in a row to end the season. Plus they beat Minnesota. Got lucky, albeit, but the Seattle Seahawks are still a top dog in the NFC West and in the NFC period. Moving on. Let's go to the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams, I believe, are going to be a little bit more reinvigorated, but they're still middle of the pack. They are still middle of the pack. Number 1 overall pick was Jared Goff this season. I am very, very, very interested in watching that man play football, watching him at the home. Finally, the Los Angeles Rams got a quarterback that can actually play football. I'm sorry, I put it out there. They got a quarterback that can actually play football. Todd Gurley is a premier running back in this league. Obviously, the Los Angeles Rams, their defense is solid. Even though statistically, in total yards per game, they were 23rd. Pass defense, they were 23rd. Run defense, they were 20th. But they had some injuries last year, and that played a part. And it's just like every other team that has some high expectations on their team. And so, like I said, Jared Goff's going to probably be the starter. Todd Gurley's probably going to, most likely 100%, those are the starters in terms of your running backs and your quarterbacks. And their offensive line figures to be, pretty solid this year, even though, they want to move a little bit more now with Jared Goff at the helm. A little bit younger quarterback, can move out the pocket a little bit more and can throw as little accurate, kind of in the Aaron Rodgers mold. But the offensive line is going to be, I'd say, average. They're not the best offensive line, but they're better than other teams. I'll let that be known. Wide receiver is where you have trouble because you don't have a lot of weapons. I mean, you don't have your possession guys. You don't have your big, tall. Kenny Britt is their only, big, tall guy on that team. Then you got Tavon Austin, who's he's pretty much a slot receiver. Brian Quick's a slot receiver. So you don't know what you're gonna get at wide receivers. That's shaky. They're very pedestrian at that position, and so you figure to see they're not gonna be that great, offensively in the passing game, but their running game is going to set up most of their passing plays. It's definitely going to set up most of their passing plays, and hopefully they make strides, this offseason to become a better offensive team this year. But that's where they really hurt. I mean, in years past, before it used to be the St. Louis Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, they're, they've been a pretty good defensive team, a young defensive team that's been on the cusp, but they just haven't had a good quarterback to stay upright and to become, stay healthy. Sam Bradford wasn't that guy. He was their number 1 overall pick, and he was a bust for them. Let's put it out there. He had a lot of talent, but he just couldn't stay healthy. And then they got Nick Foles, and he just didn't work out. And so they needed to go get a quarterback, and they got Jared Goff. So let's see what happens offensively for this team. Defensively was a really shocker. It was a down year for them. They were 23rd in total yards per game. They were 23rd in pass defense. They were 20th in run defense. And so I figured that they're going to be a lot better this year. Aaron Donald's, on the cusp of being a star. If not, he is a star. They got Robert Quinn, Quentin Coples. They got some guys, man. Michael Brockers. They got a lot of guys on that defensive line that are very talented, and figured to make strides this year, in becoming a young, talented unit. Going towards that front seven, and then the linebackers, you got Alex Ogletree, Mark Barron, Akeem Ayers. Those guys are going to be, that's basically, your 3 starting linebackers right there. And I think that front seven's not a bad front seven. I mean, they're not a bad front seven. They just need to put a little bit more effort. Like I said, the injuries played a part last year and, messing them up a little bit defensively. They also, lost Chris Sloan to the Patriots. So I'm still calling them St. Louis Rams. The Los Angeles Rams, I hope, because Los Angeles wanted, a pro sports football team there. They wanted a football team in LA, and they got the Rams now to root for. And I believe the Rams are, give them a couple years. They're going to be 3rd place in this division. That's my projection on the Rams. But I believe the Rams are still, they're a young team. They're going to find it. They're going to put it together. And, eventually, you can't be bad forever. You have to be, you have to make strides. You have to get better every year. And I think this year, I say the Rams, they'll be 8-8. There's a stretch, maybe 7-9. But I go 8-8 for the Rams. They're going to be average this year. They're going to, go through some bumps in the road. They got a rookie quarterback, for Christ's sake. I mean, you can't expect Jared Goff to pick up the speed in the NFL that quick, and especially when you got to play the Cardinals and the Seahawks 4 times. I mean, 2 of the top 10, 2 of the top 5 defensive teams in the NFL. Jared Goff's going to run into some problems, but at the same time, it helps them a lot that you have Mr. Gurley to hand the ball off to. So, like I said, I think they're gonna be 3rd place. And I basically, when I did this preview, I went in order of who I thought was going to be from top to bottom, who's going to be 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And I believe the Rams are going to be 3rd place. Now, there's only one team left to, be 4th place, and it is the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know. They rebuilt. The San Francisco 49ers are such in flux right now. It's ridiculous. Okay. I like DeForest Buckner, their 1st round draft pick. It's number 7 overall. He's going to help them out. He is a physical set specimen at 6'7", 291 pounds, and he is just absolutely going to terrorize offensive lines in a 3-4 defense. And Chip Kelly used to be his old head coach. Okay, so at Oregon. So with that being said, DeForest Buckner is going to make the most impact out of all the rookies on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, going to the San Francisco 49ers, you paid Colin Kaepernick a lot of money. You paid him a lot of money. I don't know what they're going to do with Colin Kaepernick, but you're saying Blaine Gabbert is going to be your quarterback because he had a okay season last year, better than what he did in Jacksonville, but they were a terrible team. This was a terrible team last year. They were, the Rams were dead last offensively, and that's why I said they need to get better, because you could only get better. If you're the dead last offensive team, you have to only get better. And the Niners they were just one rank ahead of them, 31st ranked offensive team in terms of yards per game. They were not that great. They were terrible offensively. So for them to go into the season saying that Blaine Gabbert is their guy is ridiculous when you're paying Colin Kaepernick, who took this team to the Super Bowl, who is your man that you paid him a lot of money. It does not make sense for people to say he has the upper hand on Colin Kaepernick. I just don't get, Jim Tonsula came in, I don't understand what the 49ers did kicking out Harbaugh, bringing in Tom Sula, realized Tom Sula was a bad idea, and now we bring in Chip Kelly, who basically a lot of players on the Philadelphia Eagles did not like. A lot of his players did not like, so you bring him into San Francisco. I thought he was done after Philly. I thought he was going to go back to being an offensive coordinator or some college football head coach, but the San Francisco 49ers gave this guy another chance. They said, let's try and see, we have some athletes. We got some guys at the quarterback position, Colin Kaepernick, Blaine Gabbert, who could get out the pocket and make plays. So they brought in Chip Kelly, and I don't think he's that great of a defensive-minded head coach. He's more offensive-minded. His teams in Philly just could not tackle. It's just the San Francisco 49ers are somewhat in a downward spiral. They have some certain spots on this team that I like, and I'll go over. And running back, Carlos Hyde, let's see if he stays healthy this year. He's definitely going to be the top back in this offense, but he needs to stay healthy. He has all the ability, big, fast, strong, can run in between the tackles, can break it for 50, 60 yards, can juke you outside the tackles. But they need offensive line to block for him, and he needs to stay healthy. If they want to be a better offensive team and not be 31st ranked offensively like they were last season, then Carlos Hyde needs to stay healthy. He needs to be productive. At wide receiver, they have Torrey Smith, Jerome Simpson, and a bunch of nobodies. And Quan Bolden is not there anymore. So this team is going to be they're going to be below average at the wide receiver positions this season. You're not going to see a lot coming out of the passing game from the San Francisco 49ers. This is why Colin Kaepernick is very frustrated there right now, and he does not want to be there. Even though he can say whatever he wants in the media, he does not want to be there. I don't understand why they haven't traded the man for some assets yet, but he does not want to be there. They have a pedestrian wide receiver core. Pedestrian. And that's being nice when I say pedestrian. They're flat out awful at the wide receiver position. Flat out awful. Tight end, Vance McDonald. I like Vance McDonald. He's big, athletic guy, can catch the ball, possessing tight end, but he can block. He's a great blocker. He's an extra blocker on that line. Offensive line, they're going to be a young offensive line, but they're going to be they're going to still have, Joe Staley there. I think Josh Garnett was there. I think Josh Garnett is from Stanford. I I think Josh Garnett is from Stanford. He's one of their first round picks. I think DeForest Buckner was the first one they picked, and then it was Josh Garnett. So he figures to be, in that starting offensive line as well. Big guy. But the offensive line is going to have to be better than what they were last year. Obviously, you're going to know what you're going to get out of Joe Staley. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He's pretty much the only lock to be very good on that offensive line, and nobody's going to take his spot, basically, going into next season. So Joe Staley is basically the only lock on that offensive line. Going through training camp, they're going to pick out, they got a lot of offensive linemen that they got. They know that is a need, and that's going to be key for their offense success next year. Hopefully they could become a better offensive team, but they need to improve their offensive line hands down. Hands down, they need to improve their offensive line. Now, defensively, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. The Niners weren't that great defensively. They were number 29 overall in terms of yards per game. In terms of yards per game as a unit defensively. And pass defense, they were number 27 overall ranked, and then run defense they were number 29. So they were flat out terrible last season defensively, and you could only get better. Like I said, the 49ers are in a rebuild mode. And right now they're just getting a lot of young pieces together to build on for the future. Aaron Armstead, DeForest Buckner, I don't even know, Ian Williams is probably going to get the nod at the nose tackle position. And so that offensive line that defensive line is young. They're going to be athletic, but they're going to, have their problems as well going into the season. At linebacker, Navarro Bowman, Ahmad Brooks, and Ray Armstrong figure to get the 3 nods at linebacker. But Aaron Lynch is suspended for 4 games. He's supposed to be one of those linebackers as well. He's getting a 4-game suspension because he tested positive for banned substance. So that's pretty much the front 7 is their linebackers are going to be better than their defensive line, but you need your defensive line to make a push so your linebackers can see the offense. As they're moving, if your defensive linemen are getting pushed back into your offensive linemen, if your defensive linemen are getting pushed back into your linebackers, you're gonna have a long season. And so their defensive line needs to step it up this year because they have talent at that linebacker position. At the defensive backs positions, you're gonna have Eric Reed, Jimmy Ward, Antoine Bethea, and let me see who might. Probably Tremaine Brock will probably get the starting nod next to Jimmy Ward. So you also that's a talented defensive backfield. Jimmy Ward was their first round pick a couple years ago. They've been using him in the nickel slot for since he got drafted in 2014, and I figured in the defensive backfield, Antoine Bethea, Eric Reed, Jimmy Ward, and Tremaine Brock, I think that's a pretty solid unit starting as your 2 top corners and your 2 top safeties. I think those 4 guys, they're pretty solid. But with that all being said, I still believe that the San Francisco 49ers are not going to win more than 6 games this year. They're going to be 6-10. They're not going to even sniff the playoffs. They're going to be last in this division. And pretty much, they're like I said, they're in rebuild. They're still a few pieces away. They need to get better at the wide receiving position. They need to get better at the defensive line position. They need better offensive linemen. They pretty much need a little bit of everything. Like I said, there's some bright spots on this team. But, like I said, they are young. A lot of guys aren't on this team from that from that Super Bowl run team and those NFC Championship teams. Colin Kaepernick is in flux right now. We don't know what his future is with the San Francisco 49ers. And they're pretty much, I don't want to say they're a mess, but like I said, they're in rebuild mode. Total type of rebuild mode. And they've been getting young assets over the last few years. Starting with Harbaugh's last season and then last season. And so the 49ers are last place team in the NFC West. And it's hard for me to say that because this team just recently, 4 years ago, was one of the top teams in the NFC. And now they're just at the bottom of the NFC West, and it's very sad to see. Very sad to see. But they have a lot of hope. Every season, every team, does something different to improve themselves. And certainly the San Francisco 49ers are, no different than any other team in the NFL. And I think, in due time, they will get back to that top spot of the NFC because they have an organization and a front office that takes no for an answer, and they're winners. They are winners there in San Francisco, but they figured they needed to get younger, they needed to get more athletic, and they needed to start fresh. And, that's what they've been doing, last couple years. Hopefully Chip Kelly can improve their offense dramatically this season. He's not a great defensive coach. He doesn't install great defensive principles, I believe, in his teams, but they still have a lot of ability on that defensive side of the ball. And I'm going to go out on a limb. They're going to be better than 29th. I think they'll be top 20 team in terms of total yards per game defensively. I think the San Francisco 49ers will be. So that wraps up the NFC West. The next podcast, I'm going to go and do the NFC East and continue the NFC conference preview here on PSW Prime. Catch us every day. Tomorrow's going to be another episode coming out for you. Like I said, I'm going to preview the NFC East and for consecutive days here in this series, and we're going to go over every conference in the NFL. So please, I'm going to post this on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Go ahead and like the new PSW Prime Sports World Facebook page. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me what you think about this podcast. Leave comments, likes, please share. And until next time, peace out, guys. Had a blast doing the podcast. I'll see you guys later. Peace.